Okay, today we are going to be talking about what took place at home in the United States during World War One. Mobilizing for war. Now, the question is, what does mobilizing mean? Typically, I would ask you this, but you're not here. So, mobilizing means getting ready. So, we are preparing to take part in our effort in the war. One of the first things that we are going to need is people. So, how do you get people besides voluntarily joining? You have a draft. The Selective Service Act was used to draft young men for military service. It was enacted in June 5th, 1917, and it was done by a lottery pick. So you had a risk of being chosen, and some had a risk of not being chosen, hence the term lottery. All right, now you're wondering what is going on with the economy? Well, we have a few things. Part of the war economy was the Council on National Defense. What they did was created different federal agencies to oversee the war effort in different areas, including what businesses would make and in an effort to keep inflation down. The War Industries Board was one of those that was in charge of keeping industries in business and involved in the war. So if a company typically made something for a consumer, they may start to make things for the military. It was headed by this guy named Bernard Baruch, and there is no free enterprise during wartime. If you don't know what enterprise means, look it up. This is a good thing to know. In addition to helping save money and regulate the economy, we are also conserving food. Because if you haven't guessed by now, we need a lot of food in Europe. Europeans have been fighting a long time before we show up. Most of the land is damaged, so they cannot farm. So not only are we feeding our own troops, but we are feeding other European soldiers. Now, what does the public think about everything that's taking place? Well, they have a little committee that is going to help encourage their participation. The Committee on Public Information was there to educate the public during the war. It's headed by this guy named Creel. Their job was to dramatize the war effort, to encourage you to support the war, and also to educate you. This poster I have right here was designed to encourage you to grow your own victory garden and to can fruits and vegetables. Therefore, the stuff in the stores, the pre-canned items, could be used overseas to feed our troops and theirs. This is another example of a propaganda poster used. As you can tell, she is an elderly woman holding out her hands, encouraging you to support the war effort. She is primarily reaching towards women because we all know that ladies have a soft spot in their heart for their sons. So, women, help America's sons win the war. Now, the way you're going to help them win the war, if you can't fight yourself, is to buy Liberty bonds. Okay, they are U.S. government bonds that you buy a certain price. The money goes to the war effort, and the idea is that at a later date you'll get a return on that bond. And this is primarily how we funded the war. Now, this one's not quite as warm and fuzzy, and it's in German. If I spoke German, I would know what it says, but I don't. The only thing I know at the bottom is anarchy, and apparently that's what they're trying to avoid. So before, when I said that some posters were dramatized, this would be an example of that. Very, very scary. All right, now most people, well, not most, a lot of people got in the war effort, but there was some opposition. That is, people that did not support the war. An example would be the men that ignored their draft notices. 12% of men never responded, never showed up, and never went into the service. In addition to that, you do have people that had a moral and religious belief that fighting was bad. So because of these moral and religious beliefs, they were forbidden from fighting and did not participate, and we call them conscientious objectors. Now, what were women doing while the men were fighting? Well, they had several places to help the war effort. One being the Women's Peace Party and the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. This was created by Jane Addams herself. The National American Women's Suffrage Association also supported the war and increased membership. And now at a later date, we are going to thank those women for those hard work and effort by giving them the right to vote. Had they not worked in the war effort, they may not have had such great support. So good job, ladies.